Welcome, Diecast collectors and heavy equipment enthusiasts. Thank you so much for joining me for an all-new edition of Diecast Emporium. In today's review, we are going to be examining the Universal Hobbies 1/50th scale Komatsu WA475-10 wheel loader. This is a medium-sized wheel loader in the Komatsu range. As you can see, the model comes in a clear window style package, and the model is zip-tied and screwed down to a plastic display stand. Looking at the box, you can see at the top left corner, die-cast model, top right corner, exact 1/50th scale, and on the bottom, the Komatsu name brand. Adequate spacing has been utilized on the package all over, including 3 separate pictures of the model in a little mini diorama. There's the first, here's the second, and here's the third. Nothing of important significance or relevance on the bottom of the box, so we will skip that over. Alright, let's begin the unboxing. As I mentioned just a moment ago, there are no less than 7 twist ties securing the wheel loader to its plastic display stand. And just when you think that is done and over with, you are met with an additional 2 screws, Phillips head screws, that are securing the model to the plastic display stand. So you are in for at least a half hour, if you do this patiently and carefully, of some unpackaging fun and nightmare. By the way, just in case you thought I was kidding, here's all the twist ties that I saved. Here is the base, if you want to see it, Komatsu WA475-10, and those 2 things right here, those are where the screws mount the wheel loader to the display base. Okay, if your wrists are still intact and not bleeding by the time you have this thing free from its packaging, you can now take a look at it. Let's start by taking a look at the decals and the details associated on this loader, and they're actually quite pleasing, at least in my humble opinion. The use of decal on this model is actually very good. The WA475 and Komatsu are very crisp on this wheel loader. Also, the tie-down points and the warning labels are used appropriately and to scale all throughout. You can see one here, 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 just to show a few examples. Moving along to the back of the wheel loader, we'll look at the engine cover and the counterweights. You can see some paint and decal has been used on here. The Komatsu name is very small, but to scale on the back of the engine cover. Some more lights. On this side, very much the same as we saw before, but I do want to point out the lug nut detail that are in these wheel hubs, these rims, because again, it is very good. Here's your stairs, your grab handles. Now your safety railings, grab handles, all that stuff, your mirrors, that's all plastic, but it is to scale and very thin, so it doesn't take away from the look of the model. Also, your connecting pins, they're all colored and matched, and most of them are actually used with tiny screws instead of pins. There are some pins like here, but these are screws. So again, not too obtrusive. They don't detract from the look of the model too terribly much. At the front, the wheel loader obviously has a rehandling or a smooth bucket, which means it doesn't have any teeth on it. Your cylinder has 2 hydraulic lines going to it. Looking at the front of the cab, we can see a windshield wiper. There's also 2 mirrors, some lights at the front of it. The interior of the cab is quite detailed as well, with an operator's seat, steering wheel, and some controls. It's just a pity that the doors don't open, so you can't get a better look at it. Back around to this side where we started. I'm not sure what this device is here. Maybe it's a fire suppression tank. You guys can let me know down in the comments section below. This right here. But it is only present on the left-hand side of the machine. While the wheel loader is facing towards you, there's an aerial on top of the cab, your air cleaner, and your exhaust as well. For functionality, let's start out with the most basic function that every rubber-tired scale model should have, and that is, how well do the wheels roll? Well, happy to report that the wheels roll very freely on this model. They don't seem to get stuck or notched. Because this is an articulated machine, it steers by, well, articulating, and the range of articulation is excellent on this model, especially when you consider it's scaled to 1/50 scale, and it will hold that range, left or right. I also want to point out that if you look across the articulation joint, it may be hard to pick up on camera, but there are several tiny hoses across the articulation joint, which really add to the immersion and realism aspect of this model. You don't see that too much on wheel loaders in 1/50th scale, so that is a huge high point for me. Just that little subtle detail that really adds a lot, and more model manufacturers should do that to 1/50th scale loaders. So we've seen the wheels, we've seen articulation. Unfortunately, two functionality aspects that this wheel loader doesn't have. Number one, there's no rear axle oscillation, as seen here. Unfortunately, the axle is fixed in position. And the doors on either side of the cab, unfortunately, are not engineered or designed to open. But most importantly, how does the bucket and the loader arms function? Well, let's see. You can get the arms up to about here without forcing anything. You can tilt the bucket back to here, once again, without overexerting any of the pistons and potentially breaking anything. I think that's very good in terms of your tilt back angle. How about your dump angle? Also very good. You should be able to get all of your loose material out without any issue. Now, I can already tell by looking at this may be slightly shallow compared to what the real machine can achieve, and that might be just because of the design of the cylinders. This should probably be able to go at least back to here, but in a minute, we'll test it out with a 1/50 scale dump truck and see if it's high enough to get over the side. That's obviously the most important aspect. So that's the higher end of things. How about the lower end of things? You can get a very aggressive cut angle, as seen here. Again, good to see. Carry angle, model also performs exceedingly well at that. Okay, let's not waste any more time. Let's see if it gets over the side of a 1/50th scale dump truck. So for sake of the review, I have a Peterbilt Diecast Masters ox body dump truck. Now the ox body dump trucks, these are a little bit higher than the unlicensed dump body that Diecast Masters used prior to obtaining the ox body license. So let's bring our wheel loader in, have him going into a makeshift pile, maybe some crushed rock. So here he goes, lifting it all the way up. And he does just barely get over the side. I know that might be a little hard to see on camera, but he does just get barely over the side, and he can tilt in. So while it's true the arms do rest on the side of the dump box, luckily, it is high enough that if you wanted to, you could pose the loader going into the side of the dump truck. So good marks there. Again, I'd like to see it be higher, but it is what it is. So in conclusion, the Universal Hobbies Komatsu WA475-10 wheel loader is a solid model. I really like the detail that's on this piece. You can see that the craftsmanship is very, very good. That's pretty typical of Universal Hobbies models, at least the handful that I have in my collection. I really like the small details that they've included on this. However, one thing that I think is holding this model back from being excellent is the limited lift height. So perhaps maybe a skilled modeler can maybe file these back a little bit and allow it to go higher. But in terms of it being stock out of the box, you've seen at least what my review model can achieve and what it can't. As always, I'm Tommy with Diecast Emporium. Thank you all so very much for watching. Let me know what you thought of this model in the comments section below. Until next time, take care and be safe. I'll see you in the next review.